All right, thank you very much. There's a lot of information to go over. Yes, there is. There are some specifics about your artwork for DTF transfers that everyone should know about. I'm going to go over two of the most common, actually probably three of the most common problems that I see in this video. One is images that have very soft or partially transparent edges. So if you were to open an image up in a design program like Photoshop and zoom all the way in down to the pixel level, you would see, like 15 or 20 pixels wide of fade to transparent. And that is a bad thing for DTF transfers, and I'll explain why here in a moment. The second one are very thin lines, little tiny lines. They're like 1 or 2 pixels wide, and the same issue, similar issue here to the transparent or feathered edges or anti-aliased edges, dithered edges, whatever you want to call them. Where the print, when you print DTF, it prints the image face down on the film, and then it puts a layer of white ink on the back of it for opacity so that it can be put on anything other than a white shirt. So this is a sublimation design, and I can only sublimate this onto a white or a light color shirt. And for example, if I did this on anything other than white, like if it was a light yellow shirt, this white would be yellow. It would just show through. His teeth would be yellow, and whatever color shirt is going to show through, because with sublimation, what is underneath is going to show through wherever white was supposed to be. And because there's no opacity, if you had yellow and you try to put it on like a light blue shirt, it's going to probably come out kind of greenish looking because there's no opacity underneath it. It's translucent, so it lets through the blue light from the underlying garment, if that makes sense. So when it puts that layer of white ink on the back, it has to inset around the edges. And so the inset allows for the design to not show that white outline around it. And I see sometimes transfers will, people will post a transfer and it'll have like some people call it a glow. It'll have like a white ring all the way around it because the edges were soft. And wherever there's a pixel of ink, even if it's not 100% opacity, 100% ink, if it's partially transparent, it's going to put white ink behind it. And that's why sublimation designs usually aren't the best option for DTF if they have any transparent or partially transparent areas. So that white ink will show through. It'll really discolor it, make it look bad. Not something you want to do. So I'm going to switch over to Photoshop here, and I'm going to show you some examples of the hard edges versus soft edges and how you can avoid it, and really how you can get some of the best DTF transfers if you have SVG files that you're usually using with a Cricut or something to cut vinyl or whatever. And some sublimation designs, as long as they are 100% colored without any transparent areas in them, can be used as well. So let me switch over to Photoshop and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, we're in Photoshop now. I'm going to do some more tutorials on Photoshop and how to properly prepare your artwork and how to check it and different things to watch for to make sure you don't order DTF transfers, really not knowing what you're doing and getting back a bad result. And when it comes to the artwork, there are a few things that are really important. Some of the most common problems I see are what I'm talking about in this video, and those are transparent or soft edges, very thin lines, or using things like sublimation designs that have transparent or partially transparent areas in the design, which do not come over very well for DTF printing. And as I mentioned, one of the reasons is because it has to put that layer of white ink behind the print so that you can put it on any colored garment. For example, if you're screen printing, old school screen printing, if the garment is anything other than white, the first thing to do is put down a layer of white ink so they have something to print on top of to keep the colors bright and accurate. Now on my screen here I have three things. I have a little thin line and I have 2 letter S's, and we're going to focus on the S's first. And if I zoom in really close to this letter S down to this corner, you will notice that the edges are very hard. There is one and maybe 1.5 pixels of transparency here. And what is going to happen is when you print that white ink on the back of it, it's going to be inset slightly so that there's no white that shows around the outside edges. And this should be perfectly acceptable. Ideally, you want no transparent edges at all, so that it is 100% fill all the way to the very edges. But 2-3 pixels isn't too bad, and is usually just fine for DTF printing, especially if the objects are very large like this, where you're not dealing with really thin lines. We're going to go over and talk about that thin line here in just a moment, but in this case, this is in pretty good shape. Like I said, ideally you would want it to be a perfectly hard edge, but this would be acceptable. So if I were to use my eraser tool and make it look more like this, now I'm not asking you to do this to your images, I'm just showing an example here of what a hard edge actually looks like, and that would be a hard edge. 100% fill to nothing. Hard edges are the best. Now let me zoom back out, and I'll zoom in on the other S that I have here in the same area, and you will notice a drastic difference in the edges. And so you're talking about probably 15 or 20 pixels of what we call anti-aliasing or dithering or feathering, also known as soft edges. So if I zoom back out slowly, you'll see that it's blurred, and there is the edge. And what this will cause is a layer of white ink to be showing through those partially transparent edges. Now let me turn on a gray background here so you'll see what I'm talking about. And there you can see that's a pretty soft edge. And I've already placed another S behind this that's white, that's going to mimic what you would see on a DTF print. So I'll turn that on. And now you can see that glow kind of sort of look around the edges, and you don't want that. When you put this on a shirt, that's going to show a white edge like that. And so ideally what you want on a shirt is a very crisp, sharp edge just like that, not like this. And this is the importance of the soft edges. Now the other thing I'm going to show you is this little tiny thin line that I made. This line is 3 pixels wide, and this will be a very super thin line. And what would happen with this line is you would typically lose 1/3 or 2/3 of this line, if not the entire line, depending on the amount of inset that the printer operator chooses to apply to that. So if I were to select this and then I contract by 1 pixel, the area you see highlighted is where it would print the white ink, and it would leave this untouched around the edge. So you would only get a 1 pixel wide line, which may or may not even stick to the garment, because the white ink is what picks up the powder, which turns into the adhesive after it goes through the oven. And so I'd recommend most lines be a minimum about 5 pixels wide, so that the end result will show up on the garment. The same thing for little tiny dots. I see a lot of distressed or splatter look type designs, and a lot of times there's only 1 or 2 pixels as a dot, and those do not come across, so you lose a lot of the design when you do that. And then this is a sublimation design that I pulled in. That's it's a beautiful design. It looks great on a shirt, and when I actually put white behind that, it's going to make it glow quite a bit. So what I'll do here is I'll actually add a layer behind this, and I'll make it red just so that you can see it really well. This isn't what a DTF print would look like, but this is what you want to watch for. And so again, these very soft faded edges that are glow. You see this area that turns from really white to a pink and orange color. That is going to basically print white out here, and it's going to look very splotchy, very ugly, and not work very well. So if you're using sublimation designs, make sure they do not have partially transparent areas, and make sure they have as hard of edges as possible. With this design, it would be, I could fix this with Photoshop, but it would be kind of tough because of the way it's laid out and made. But definitely some of the biggest issues that we see are these soft edges and really tiny thin lines that you need to watch in your artwork. Now, when it comes to SVG files, you can upload your SVG files directly into our gang sheet builder on our website and lay out your gang sheets that way. However, a lot of people do lay out their own gang sheet in Photoshop and make it 22 inches by 5 feet long, or however they want to do that, and it's quicker and easier for them. The key to this, when you bring an SVG file into Photoshop, I'm just going to drag and drop one in here. You can go to File, Open this the same way, is to specify the size that you want it here, and make sure this anti-alias box is unchecked and constrain proportions is checked, your ratio, your aspect ratio is going to change your height with your width. So you want to set your size here. Make sure it's set to 300 dpi. RGB mode color is fine, and anti-alias is unchecked. That's what gives you the soft edges. So when I bring this in and I go to this down to the pixel level, you will see there are no soft edges whatsoever. So hopefully that's been helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, post them below the video.